Ready, Mayor Harris.
Excellent. All right, welcome everyone. It's Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 7 p.m. and we'll call our regular council meeting to order. We'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 7 territory and the Otipemisiwak Métis Government, District 4. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our community. All right, item 2.1, February 18th, 2025 agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, if there aren't any, can I get a motion?
There is a chair.
Councillor Vang.
I will make the motion that council agenda be accepted as prepared.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 3.1, February 4th, 2025, regular council meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, if there's no changes, can I get a motion?
Through the chair.
Councillor Brennan.
I move that the February 4th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Yep. Okay, item 4.1, bylaw 2025-01 municipal development plan. Steve Altena, Director of Infrastructure and Community Growth.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Just give me a moment to get it firing up. I apologize, Councillor Knight. We didn't quite have the presentation ready. I don't know if Mayor, do you want us to take 2 minutes and get that sent over to Councillor Knight?
Yeah, please send that over to Councillor Knight so he has it as well.
If you just sent, yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
I assume it's different than the one in the package, eh?
Through the chair to Councillor Knight. Sorry, say again.
In the minutes in the package, there's actually the MDA thing in here. It's a different review then, or a different presentation?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Knight. It's just the PowerPoint presentation that I'll go through quickly. It covers the information that's in the report.
Hey, Mayor, he can go. I've read the whole MDA report, so it'll be the same thing that he's following up on, so it's okay. I went through the whole 30-some pages that I went through already today.
Okay, to the chair to Councillor Knight. I just sent it to your email there, so you should have it momentarily, but I will get started.
I got it, thanks.
All right, good evening, Council. Steve Altena, Director of Infrastructure and Community Growth. I do apologize, there's a typo in the report. It was to be presented by Urban Systems. They did let me know last week that they wouldn't be able to attend tonight. So I do apologize for the confusion there. I will be giving a short presentation just on the municipal development plan. It's first reading, so typically we keep it fairly brief for first reading, and then we get to the real meat and potatoes with the public hearing. So I'll outline the next steps kind of a little bit later in the presentation. The administration thought it appropriate to provide council a quick rundown of what we've changed and what we've done with the municipal development plan, and where we would like to see, or where we would recommend the next steps to be with the municipal development. So just a background, municipal development plan, I believe as all council knows, is a long-range statutory planning document to guide development in the town. It's required for each municipality to have a municipal development plan. This is in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. It also conforms to higher order plans such as the Land Stewardship Act and the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. and implements essentially the planning framework for the town and all the subsequent statutory planning documents that fall underneath the municipal development plan as well, including area structure plans. So back in 2022, 2023, council, along with our third-party engineering and planning consultants, gone through a number of workshops and administration have gone through a number of workshops to establish direction for the MDP. Oh, I'm talking to a presentation that doesn't not up there.
Well, we were imagining it. Looks really good from here.
What page was last time?
I don't know. You have to put something on your.
I guess I'm not sharing screens anymore. Apologize, council. Everybody,
Nothing worse than technical challenges when you're trying to do something. Like this.
I just presented and it worked just fine.
Especially when thousands of people watch.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's watching. It's okay.
All right.
There we are.
There we are. All right, 2022, 2023, administration, council, third planning, engineering consultants conducted a series of workshops to establish direction for the MDP updates. So what we've gone away and done with working closely with the urban systems is to establish a community vision centered on values, assets, and aspirations. Values being a shared collection of things that matter to the community, family, safety, integrity, those types of aspects and values. Assets, elements that the town would like to protect, the community would like to protect and improve: recreation, environment, business. Aspirations, where the town would like to go for tomorrow: attractive spaces, economic growth, fiscal health, responsible growth within the town. Considering the community vision, the MDP is intended to provide the policy direction and recommended actions to support achieving the desired outcomes as outlined in the document. These include community-oriented development, housing diversity, sustainable infrastructure, fiscal health, and informed and engaged citizens. So in order to accomplish this and to provide strong guidance for the future of development in Crossfield to achieve the community vision and support the community's values, administration is proposing a number of major changes to the municipal development plans. This is an update to the municipal development plan, but the document is going to look a fair amount different than our current one does. Our current one's back from 2018. So changes include restructuring of the document and identification of strategic directions to better align policies with the desired outcomes as informed by that community vision. Updating our reserve policies to ensure dedication of functional reserve land. Clear identification of actions needed to implement the MDP effectively. So this is looking through the MDP to understand where the town needs to take action to then support the MDP and support the implementation of the MDP. Identification of submission requirements for planning and development applications. You'll see that in the back of the appendices of the new MDP, is that there's a very clear outline of what needs to be submitted in support of a planning and development application, specifically tailored towards ASBs and redesignations and concept plans. Recognition that flexible interim servicing strategies that allow for phased development approach would support business growth on the east side of Highway 2A. Understanding that there are barriers to growth on the east side of Highway 2A for the town's economic development in terms of large infrastructure costs. The MDP sets the first step towards looking at a different solution on that side, a limited servicing concept, phasing up to full servicing on that side. An action coming out of the MDP would be to update the offsite levies, ensure that everyone's paying their fair way, and then phase out that servicing to support growth on the east side of Highway 2A. In a little more detail, the land use policy areas, we've restructured the land use policy areas somewhat. The existing MDP land use policy areas shown on the left side of the page here. The new proposed ones shown on the right side. I won't go through everything necessarily here, but you can see some restructuring around the urban corridor areas. There's new definitions for different residential types within the MDP. The MDP switches more to a typology sort of style for land use policy areas. It's about identifying what these communities would look like and feel like, rather than getting into very, very specifics about exactly what they're composed of. So it's talking about supporting and central neighborhoods, traditional neighborhoods, what new neighborhoods would look like and new growth would look like, what an urban corridor for higher aesthetic values along our gateway areas would look like, what would our employment centers look and feel like, and things like that. So it's a little more about function-based rather than specific parameter-based. So again, developing those land use policy areas to introduce typologies. There's an example shown here with the downtown core. There's a number of other typologies that are introduced within the MDP. And again, to really lay out what the look and feel of these areas, would be, and then supporting policies to back this up and for how we get that. How do we get there? How do we get to what the outcomes we're trying to achieve here? So these typologies, again, guide the placemaking for these neighborhoods. This is more of a placemaking kind of structure around these policies. Placemaking for neighborhoods, districts, and corridors within Crossfield. The new MDP also worked to establish a clear planning hierarchy. We're looking to implement more of a, it's similar to Airdrie's, to be honest with you. We have a community area structure plan on the east side of Highway 2A where it covers almost 5 quarter sections. It's a very large area to be planning on for an urban community. So we would consider that a community area structure plan, covering multiple quarter sections. A neighborhood structure plan, again, another area structure plan. So it's a statutory plan. We cover 1 quarter section. So a Vista Crossing or an Iron Landing that spans 1 quarter section or a Sunset Ridge, that would be considered kind of a neighborhood structure plan scale. It's detailed enough that we can go to redesignation, we can go to subdivision with it. A community area structure plan might be over multiple quarter sections. And then you'd have separate neighborhood structure plans underneath there that would allow you to go down to that detail. We introduce the idea of a concept plan, which may be for larger parcels, urban blocks, complex or unique developments that might involve multiple parcels. And this would be discretionary depending on what was going on. Typically for parcels or groups of parcels less than 20 acres. Something that wouldn't need a neighborhood structure plan, but that we'd need more additional planning guidance on. The current MDP right now is lacking in that gap a little bit, where we jump right from ASP to subdivision or redesignation. And we don't really have anything in between for something that's a little more complex, where council or administration wants to see a little bit more planning on. These would typically be adopted by council as non-statutory documents by resolution. And then, of course, we go down to the typical redesignation, subdivision, and then development permit stages. For the next steps, that's a quick kind of overview of the MDP. For the next steps, we're doing first reading today. We're recommending first reading to council today as administration. Next steps will be public engagement and circulation through March. We do need to circulate Rocky View County, other agencies that the town works with and is involved with, Alberta Transportation, Alberta Environment. All those agencies will be circulated. We'll get comments back from our public engagement. We will be recommending council that we go out for public engagement with the community, probably in the form of online survey and open house in March. Once we receive, feedback from council, feedback from residents, feedback from agencies and partners that we work with the county, we'll refine the MDP throughout April, and the intent would to bring back for public hearing. So again, a much more robust presentation with support from Urban Systems, and then second and third readings again in May 2025. So our recommendation to council tonight from administration is that the Crossfield Municipal Development Plan Bylaw 2025-01 be given first reading, and that council direct administration to conduct public engagement on the draft Crossfield Municipal Development Plan and return to council for public hearing before the end of Q2 2025. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Great, thanks, Director. No questions? Just a couple questions from me. One is just on the first reading. First reading, just for clarification, is first reading. We could still make changes to this afterwards. And you're going to do engagement with the community before coming back. So any of their thoughts and changes could be implemented into the bylaw readings.
Yeah, to the chair, to the mayor, that's correct. So we continue to refine the document afterwards. That's still possible, and then we'd bring back for second and third and that public hearing recommended amendments essentially to the draft bylaw. But yeah, certainly not. Yeah, we'll certainly refine it in the interim.
Okay, great. We talk about in this document the 2009 sustainability plan. That plan is a fairly old document. Is it, as you read it, is it still current today, or could that document require a few updates as well? to align to the MDP.
Yeah, thank you to the chair. Yes, certainly at nearly 16 years old, that document is certainly getting up there. I believe this MDP, it was a bit of a tough balance, to be honest, because it was to be an MDP update rather than an overhaul.
Mhm.
I think we can go back and look at that sustainability plan, and perhaps an action item out of the MDP is to update the sustainability plan to support this current version of the MDP. So it's certainly something we can review in a little closer detail. But this document was still prepared with that sustainability plan in mind.
Okay, great. So on page 38 of the document, you talk about infilling throughout, the town, especially in some of the older areas. I guess like for me, and then later on in the document, you talk about, it's on a case by case basis, but in one area, it almost looks like you're saying it's like blanket kind of infilling zoning, just like kind of like Calgary did. And later on in the document, it states it would be on a case by case basis. So maybe some consistency on wording there. My preference is a case by case basis. I don't think that a blanket zoning is suitable for Crossville at this time, but that's how I feel. I don't know how everyone else feels, but just lending some consistency maybe to the wording.
For sure. And if you don't mind, I can provide some comments around that to the mayor. So certainly page 38 relates to the downtown core specifically. So understanding that's a bit of a, it's the activity center of the town, right? And we would expect perhaps a little bit higher densities there. So there'll be probably more support, or administration suggests there likely be more support for, some infilling there. The downtown, the central core neighborhoods, again, the older areas of town, we've seen, carriage houses being developed. We've seen,
Yeah.
duplexes come in. Those kind of areas, with the grid streets and things are conducive to townhouse development and things like that. So I think it was kind of we were trying to achieve kind of a gradient scale of, where info will be supported, very supported, in the downtown core, and the traditional neighborhoods, subdivided kind of after the 1960s, to the early 1990s. They're a little less suited for infill. So that's kind of where the case by case came, where it made sense, where it fit with the community, where it didn't change the community style, how the community feels. But, there are some cases where it might make sense to do so, to take down maybe one house and build, a small short, block of, three townhouses or a duplex, right? So it was meant to be a spectrum, but certainly something we can clarify and refine, as we go forward.
That'd be great. And then in some of the, like on page 42 and a few other pages, as we go down the gradients, we still talk about having like narrowing the streets. Can you just explain, what does that mean? And I know that this council has talked extensively about keeping the wider streets so that our fire trucks and maybe buses and transportation in the future can drive down our streets.
And sorry, to the mayor, which policy you're referring to?
Well, I was on page 42 was one of the areas that I saw narrowing of the streets on the under street character. Page 42. Implement traffic calming measures, narrow streets, street trees, bulb outs at crosswalks.
I may be on a different 42.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because that's my 40. See.
Oh, sorry, 27 then. Yeah, I was looking at the top of our package page
me
number,
too.
not the page number of the document.
Yeah, certainly.
So it's central core neighborhoods. And then land uses. And then street character, partway down the page on the right-hand side.
Yeah, no, thank you to the mayor. I see that now. Yeah, certainly. Those are examples. I think, what we've heard from residents, certainly, as administration is, concerns on certainly some of the gridded streets about, a bit higher speeds, traffic safety and things like that. Narrow streets are certainly a way to deal with that a little bit. They do help keep the speeds down on the streets. If you have, street parking, fairly narrow streets, cars essentially have, what you call in transportation world side friction. They slow down a little bit when it feels a little more constrained, a little more narrow. You get the bump outs, you improve crosswalks. So I think it's speaking towards developing a pedestrian-friendly environment and atmosphere. Certainly, these things are a balancing act. You know, we've certainly heard from council that that the really narrow streets are not necessarily desired. But I think we do try and look at it from a number of perspectives. Maintaining the character of the neighborhood as council's looking towards, but also for that public safety element too. So it's certainly something we can refine or clarify. That is just an example in Central Core neighborhood. I don't expect those areas to change too much, to be honest. The street pattern is fairly set. You're not seeing new development there, right? So-
Mhm. Mhm. Counselor Gustafson, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you. And this leads to a little bit of my thoughts from Mayor Harris's. It seems like in the last 10, 15 years, we're all talking about minimums, right?
Mm.
It's all about minimums, whether it's minimums, we're following the minimums all the time. I'd like Crossville to be a little bit more of a leader and not just, we're just doing just enough to get by, just enough to get by with the street size, just enough to get by with, protecting the environment and being stewards of the land. Following just the minimums for Alberta environment for setbacks. I think we need to go above and beyond that to be a successful community and to have, residents that want to come, and live here. I just, how do we put that into this document that we're not just looking for the minimums anymore? Whether it's, lot sizes, street widths, setbacks from sensitive areas, environmental areas. We just been going by this minimums forever and ever and ever. And how can we implement that into our document going forward? I know it's going to be a challenge because again, it's a balancing point where, we have development versus the community itself. And I'm not quite sure how to design that into this document, but I think that's, not only council's wish as well. Well, I can't speak for all of council, but my wish is to have, let's live by more than just the minimums anymore. And I would say that even our community members would follow that as well. We don't want to be just like the minimums of Calgary or the minimums of Airdrie. We want to be much more than that. And I think that will draw more attention to our town for sure.
And I think what you're saying is we want to be uniquely Crossville
Correct.
and we don't want to follow, some of the bigger centers that are surrounding us. And, what makes it so people want to move here and even what developers want to develop here. And what does that look like?
Yeah, and I agree to that is,
Yeah.
we still want developers to come here and develop, the lands and build houses and build communities. But we don't want to sacrifice the people that, that live here and enjoy it right now. And the environment that, the green spaces, the marshes, the ponds that are already here. Do we want to sacrifice that for some of the development? I don't believe that we should. But
Well, and I think that you're right. It's all on how you do it and what are those setbacks.
100%.
Is it just the Alberta environment setback?
Or-
Do we have something of our own? to go
Correct.
In addition with that to preserve those places?
Yeah, and it's not just setbacks from whatever like environment, but it's more of like you said, street widths, municipal reserve areas. It's all of those things, all those minimums that we've been basically following for the last so many years. Let's just do just enough to get by, and I don't think that's really the motto of our community should be.
And-
Just enough to get by.
And just another example to that too is we talk about on, I think, hang on. I'll get the right page for you this time, page 30, when we talk about established neighborhoods. And in here it mentions design, like cul-de-sacs integrated into neighborhood design. I do think that this council has gone through the cul-de-sac talk a little bit. But when we talk about going into the cul-de-sacs and stuff, and if we are to develop any of those, the developer always like to squeeze that one or two more houses into that cul-de-sac, and then we have neighborhood problems. We have little parking, we have neighborhood issues, there's just not room to do anything in there. So I think there is another example of standards and having a bit higher standard. If we go down the cul-de-sac way, the grids are great, but some of the cul-de-sacs are not. Councilor Brennan.
That's okay.
Another thing on cul-de-sac. Sorry. Just another thing on the cul-de-sacs, like speaking to some emergency service folks, that they are a huge hassle for them as well. Like just one more little consideration is that it is navigating those with people parked on both sides, and then especially in the winter, it's just not conducive to good fire services or any emergency services for that matter.
Like some of the softer, I don't know what they're called. They're like, there's the cul-de-sac that's really deep, but there's the softer curve around. There's a difference between what they're called. I think, I'm not sure, but the one on Knight Avenue is not something we want to repeat.
No.
I blame Mike.
Through
Councillor
the chair.
Councilor Gustafson, go ahead.
And not what I'm saying is I'm not trying to, push away development. I'm like, you know what? Let's be a leader. Let's set the new standard. Calgary set a standard because everybody runs by Calgary standards, right? So let's set a new standard, I think. What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
I've lived here for well over 20 years, and I think we need to do a little bit better than what we've been doing in the past.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, through the chair.
Councilor-
So Steve, would
Deputy
that
Mayor.
fall under, sorry. Would that fall under 4.4.7 on page 28, just to elaborate a little more under block character and site considerations?
To the chair, Deputy Mayor, sorry, that was 4.4.7.
Yeah. Block character and site considerations.
Yeah, and so these central core neighborhoods, they're typically built out now, and what we'd see is, there'd be some infills or redevelopments within these areas, right? So 4.4.7, redevelopment should include a collection of lot widths and setbacks that contribute to unique identity and avoids the creation of homogeneous neighborhoods. So that's just speaking to street character, should there be infills and things like that they're not all just lined up at this exact same setback along the road, and it feels like a big wall of townhomes along the street, right? So it's to keep, uniqueness and character within the neighborhood, essentially.
And the one other thing that I saw in here too is we were talking about garages to the side or to the back on some of the smaller lots and whatnot. But I thought this council, we had talked about having front drives and that parking. And an example of that too is in Airdrie. I think it's Meadowlark. It's by Cooper's, but it's further to the north, and they have some smaller townhouses in there. And granted, I don't think we want them as crammed in as what those are, but they do have a front 1-car garage and a 1-lane driveway at the front to get into. And I think that right now, what we're seeing with some of the back garages that are not attached to the house is that people tend to park on the street still. And that clogs up the street and on those narrow roads that we have, say, over in Vista. So maybe just some consideration to what does that look like, and how do we get people to park, in the drives or in their garages.
Yeah, and to the mayor, and I think to all council, I think the purpose of the MDP is to set that high level direction
Yep.
in planning.
Yeah.
So what happens, after the MDP in areas like Vista, is that there's an ASP adopted underneath that, which helped guide a lot of those different types of policy decisions as well. And they refine and build on the decisions in the MDP, right? So the MDP is not necessarily a document that provides extremely detailed guidance on exactly how development shall happen. It does provide that in some cases because infills are guided by the MDP, so don't have ASPs on the whole. But in certainly some of the new areas, some of the things will certainly be directed at the ASP level.
Be Morningside, could be that. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Counselor Knight, you have anything?
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Should
No,
maybe
I
call
don't. I'm
IT
just
guy.
trying to get to this thing.
It's in your council
Sorry.
pack.
No, I don't. No, I was just trying to reply back, but I wasn't bringing it back to my page here. I was still in the package part there, looking at the review. No, I've got no questions for now. I'll be curious to see how the engagement of the community would really
Yeah.
sees this as my next path here.
Excellent. Great, anyone else? Perfect. Sheriff Altina, thanks, really good job. That was a lot of work that you guys put into that. And send our thanks off to Urban as well. Okay. There are no further questions or further discussion. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair.
Councilor Brennan.
I move that the Crossfield Municipal Development Plan bylaw 2025-01 be given first reading and that council direct administration to conduct public engagement on the draft Crossfield Municipal Development Plan and return to council for a public hearing before the end of Q2 2025.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Great. Okay, item 5.1, active transportation federal grant. Director Nash.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, council. Before you is a report on the Active Transportation Fund and a grant application that administration would like to proceed with in order to help support a few projects that we already have approved in our 2025 capital budget, those being annual sidewalk replacement program, the annual pathway replacement program, as well as the Safe Roads Improvement Program. This is a federal grant program and it does require a resolution from council to support the application. Some background information, the Active Transportation Fund supports the development and enhancement of active transportation networks to provide Canadians with the opportunity to safely and affordably reach destinations by active modes of transportation. Funding will be provided for capital projects that involve new construction or enhancement of existing infrastructure, encouraging travel by active methods, including sidewalks, multi-use paths, and bike lanes. So within the 2025 capital budget, council has approved a total of $130,000 for these projects, broken down as you see there, $50,000 for sidewalk replacement, $50,000 for pathway replacement, and another $30,000 for the Safe Roads Improvement Program. If approved, this program could fund up to 60% of the total project costs, which would allow administration or could allow administration to complete more projects with the current allotment of budgeted funds. So with that, I am here. Sorry, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything here. So yes, I guess so administration is seeking support from council so that we can proceed with the application to the Active Transportation Fund for those projects. So if there's any questions, I'm available to answer.
Excellent, thank you. Question,
Through the chair.
Councilor Gustafson.
You mentioned, Russ, do more projects, or are we trying to speed up the timeline on, say, the sidewalk revitalization with the extra money? Or would we kind of bank some of that and just stay on the timeline?
So through the chair to Council Gustafson, I don't think it would speed up a timeline. So we have a couple options. So because we can, if we're approved, we could get 60% of the 130. We could do more projects with the 130, or we can save that money and we'd spend less than 130 to get the same projects done in the same year. So, we were looking to try and maybe add a few extra areas to try and get more done with that extra money. And that's kind of, we thought we could get a little more bang for a buck out of doing that. So
Makes sense.
Thank you, Russ.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Deputy Mayor.
make the motion that council support the town of Crossville's application to the Active Transportation Fund for replacement of sidewalks and pathways, as well as implementation of additional pedestrian safety and accessibility measures within town.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, bike pump track location report, Director Nash.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Yeah, so administration is here to seek some direction from council in respect to the location of the bike skills / pump track facility that was approved in the 2025 capital budget. We have reviewed some available vacant land and discussed options with council in order to move forward with planning and construction of this new recreation facility. Sorry, lost my train of thought. This facility does fall in line with some of our planning documents that we currently have in place, those being our Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment as well as our Social Needs Assessment. So the administration does look forward to it and wants to get this facility built for the community to address some of those needs and wants. And as mentioned, we are looking for some direction from administration on a path forward to try and get started on this project.
Great. Questions, comments? I think that in our planning session there, you had some direction on maybe having a look at over by the Diamond 4 and then over by Murdoch Park. I
Correct.
think we could go with that.
Through
Councillor Dustin.
the chair, would you just modify that that motion there to just include those two locations and make it short and sweet, I guess? Sorry.
Yeah, with the
With the
include the stakeholder engagement.
absolutely.
Yep, sure. Would you like to make a motion? There you go.
Through the chair, I'll move the council direct administration to move forward with public and stakeholder engagement for the input of locating the new bike skills pump track facility, and the administration bring results of the public's and stakeholder engagement back to future council meeting with the Murdoch Park / Ball Diamond 4 locations.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's motion carried. Thank you, Director Nash. Okay, item 6.1, 2024 operating and capital carry forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Amber, you have a new title? Sorry, what's your title? CFO? Okay. Chief Finance Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. This report contains administration's recommendation for the 2024 operational and capital carry forwards. Carry forward projects are those that can span multiple years or where a delay was experienced due to unforeseen construction delays. It also includes projects that were not started due to a variety of factors such as resource constraints and weather conditions. Previous council directions. The 2025 draft operating and capital budgets were previously approved by council on November 19th, 2024. Therefore, council is the only body that can approve these changes. I guess before I jump into the background, I should read out my recommendation for this report. That council amends the 2025 capital budget to include the 2024 capital budget carry forwards in the total of $642,272, and that council amends the 2025 operating budget to include the operating carry forward in the amount of $88,700. So the proposed operating carry forward is administration is proposing that $50,700 be carried forward into the 2025 operating budget for the placemaking project recommendations related to the Northern and Regional Economic Development Program grant. This recommendation was previously presented to council in October 2024. 50% of the amount carried over, or $350, will be supported by the NRED grant funding. It is also proposed that $38,000 in unspent 2024 contracted service budget related to the Planning and Development Department be carried forward into the 2025 operating budget to support the completion of the MDP and policy development related to the updated MDP. Proposed capital program carry forwards. The 2024 capital budget carry forward request of $642,272 represents approximately 38% of the overall capital budget of $1.67 million. The Westgate Estates fence replacement. First, there's a table that outlines the capital programs, including the 2024 budget, the actual, and the requested carry forward amount for each project. The Westgate Estates fence replacement, the unspent budget is necessary to supplement the 2025 approved budget to enable the completion of the fence replacement. The wastewater treatment and disposal feasibility study and the active transportation plans are both ongoing and are expected to be wrapped up in the first half of 2025. And each of these projects are funded by grants. The water meter replacement, we have just a few old technology meters in town specific to some commercial properties. So we're looking to have those changed out in 2025. The water and wastewater main replacement budget that was established in 2024 is being carried over as those funds are needed in the current year to complete the water and wastewater main replacement along Lott Avenue. The recycle and waste carts were not purchased in 2024. However, new bin purchases are required in this current year due to increased demand from growth. The Amory Park rink upgrades, the 2024 budget is to be combined with the 2025 approved budget to complete the necessary upgrades and repairs to the popular outdoor recreational facility. The dog park located at Lott Avenue will be completed during the 2025 construction year. The park sign replacement project carry forward is being used to install 2 final signs at Veterans Park and Amory Park, parks that previously hadn't had signs. So along with the 2025 budget, those unspent dollars from 2024 will go towards those signs, and then also some of the beautification around the sign locations. And finally, the Banta Park revitalization. This project didn't advance in 2024, but an RFP for design work will be issued early in 2025 based on the approval of these carry forward budgets. So as far as risk assessment is concerned, a large portion of the carry forward requests are for multi-year projects which have commitments. Failure to carry forward the funds, these amounts will affect capital plans and may cause issues with projects currently underway. So that concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that. Question. Counselor Duff.
Through the chair. Thanks, Amber. Just a quick question on the carry forwards. Are we updating the amount that the 25 will have to cover? I guess, is there enough for inflation and any other updates on, increased costs? Is there enough carrying forward to finish those projects? Did we take a look at that?
Through the chair, I do believe that during the capital budgeting process for 2025, that some of those things were considered. I know there is some inflationary impacts with some of the wastewater projects, so we are looking to round up all the budget dollars that we can to ensure that some of the critical infrastructure work can be done throughout town.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no further discussion, can I get motion, please?
Through the chair.
Counselor Gus.
Where are we at again? Oh,
6.1.
Sorry. I'll move that the council amend the 2025 capital budget to include the 2024 capital budget carry forward of $642,272.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And second motion.
And also move that the council amend the 2025 operating budget to include the 24 operating budget carry forward of $88,700.
Excellent. Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. On to councilors. Thanks, Amber.
You're welcome.
So we can report. Councilors business. I have attended 2 Mayor's Caucus meetings the last 2 weeks. Continued to meet with the CEO and continued to support the craft hockey bill initiative. We are currently sitting in 4th place, and I encourage everybody to, tell their stories. 10 points per story, 5 points per picture, and then if you like everyone else's stuff, you get 1 point per like. So if we get into the top 3, that'll push us into the next round where people get to vote for the top 3 players. So let's continue to do that final push. Deputy Mayor.
Nothing further to report till next month.
Hey, Councilor Brennan.
Same, nothing further to report.
Councilor Gustafson.
I took Councillor Knight's place there on the Water Commission meeting last week, and that's about it. To get a Rocky View Foundation meeting next Wednesday.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Nothing further to report, but happy to be back, team.
Excellent. Happy to have you back. Councilor Lambert sends her regrets, and Councilor Bang.
I have nothing to report.
All right, can I get a motion?
Through the chair, I'll make the motion that councilor's business be accepted as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 8.1, outstanding items list. I'll pass it over to CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. So we have one item 049 that was concluded, I believe, at the last meeting that we would request removal of. The other item I would like to note is item 004 being the town-owned lands discussions on future use rather. While we did have a conversation with council, acknowledge there is further work that we'll be doing on that item. However, I would request to adjust the due date for the follow-up component to Q2 of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes the changes that we'll be requesting.
Questions for CEO Burton? Getting lucky on your first day back. Excellent. So no further questions, then can I get a motion?
Who's there?
Councilor Brennan.
Motion to adjourn at 7:50 p.m.
We'll just back it up a little bit and maybe do a motion for 8.1,
Oh,
if that's okay.
my apologies. That I move that item 049 be removed from the outstanding items list.
Great, all in favor? Motion carried. And that brings us to the end of the meeting.
Chair, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.